Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today. You probably know, my name is Jennifer. This channel is Comics Will Break Your Heart. You normally find me on Instagram at Comic Books Will Break Your Heart. It's a little bit confusing, but it is what it is. You may also find me on Twitter at Gin and Comic Show if you knew like my previous handle. But what I'm here to talk about today is a really cool series called Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. And I'm here with my friend Melchior today to talk about it. So, Melchior, why don't you go ahead and let us know where these beautiful people can find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Smoker Buddy, which I think is maybe on the screen, possibly. And then on YouTube, if you search Modern Lit, that's my YouTube channel. That's basically my presence everywhere.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, because I know a little bit about like your YouTube channel and what you do, but what is it that you do? Like what do you bring to your YouTube channel?
Mostly it's pretty random. Like I really took to heart the jack of all trades, master of none thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have there's me doing poetry, which I do a lot. There's some videos of I worked for a long time in a nonprofit that did youth spoken word poetry. So there's some teenagers doing some spoken word poetry. There's me playing music. I also play music. There's me. Yeah, that's a hodgepodge of one person's attempts.
I dig that though. Like I think I don't know, I feel like what I do is very monolithic. It's like, okay, you can find me talking about comics. I mean, you can find me talking about like horror, and if I had to have a brand, it's like I like weird science fiction and comics. And if I could be known for anything, it would be to be the Carl Sagan of comic books. Like I feel like that's my mission, is just to bring comic books to people.
That's
Yeah,
fucking.
it's hefty. Like that's a big goal because Carl Sagan is like up here in my book, right?
Mine too. Yeah, he's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, ever since I was a kid and watching Cosmos,
Oh,
his voice,
oh.
chef's kiss.
One time, if anyone here watches the weekly live stream that I do with my friend Dan on Comic Chop News, we recently talked about Black Science, and we got into a couple other things. However, we talked about The Wake by Sean Murphy, and there was a
Recently.
ooh, I can hear a little bit of feedback. So a couple years ago, I went to Heroes Con and I saw Sean Murphy, and I asked him like, "Hey, in The Wake, there's this character that looks like Carl Sagan. Was that intentional? Because the character is a scientist." And so Sean Murphy and I had this moment where we talk about Carl Sagan in Cosmos making the whale sounds, where he's like, whoop, boom, whoop, boom. So I feel like I've mentioned it several times, but Sean Murphy, if you're watching, let's make whale sounds together. Um, yeah, yeah.
Shoot your
Alrighty.
shot.
Shoot my shot. Yeah, 100%. So, but what we are here to talk about today is this really cool series, and I feel like it's amazing and it's underrated, and I feel like it is pertinent. I feel like it's so relatable, and it gets what's going on right now. And the series, in case you didn't already tell from like the posts that I've been doing and the title of this, hey, if you're here, surprise, we're talking about Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. Um, so the series was created by David Crownson and Cortland Ellis. Those are the two. David Crownson wrote it, and Cortland Ellis, he did the artwork for the original one. It looks like in the um, secondary, tertiary, quaternary, I don't know, second, third, and fourth issues. If someone wants to correct me in the chat, please go ahead and do so. But there's some artist changes on it, but David Crownson is the main creator of this. And for anyone who didn't get it from the title, but in this series, Harriet Tubman, and she's a badass of history. Like, if you don't know about Harriet Tubman, like, you're about to learn today. She was this badass woman who helped slaves escape from the South up to the North. And even after that, she was this like naval captain, and just, the ways that she thwarted um, uh, evading capture basically from slave patrols. Seriously, like, this woman does not get enough credit. She was 4'11", which is like here on me. I'm 5'3", 5'2", maybe, I don't know, whatever. So like she'd be like right here on me, and she was incredible. So even though she was this badass in real life, this comic book, Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, um, reimagines her in this role of not just helping slaves escape on the Underground Railroad, but fighting like demons and vampires along the way. Um, the issue right now, or the series right now, has 4 issues. And David Crownson on his Instagram has posted some like sneak peeks on, okay, well, I'm going to put a little, I don't know, like little kernel, like, hey, sometime maybe in October, issue 5 is going to come out. Okay, maybe around Christmas, issue 6 is coming out. So I'm really, really excited about this one. So you caught up on all 4 issues, right?
Yeah. I bought them straight from
Yeah.
from the creator through the Instagram with the same title.
Yeah. When I saw this series, and I feel like I've been seeing this series for a while, like it's been on my radar as an indie title for a while, and I'm like, okay, it's time to go ahead and pick it up. And I saw that when I went to his page, I saw that there was a link to Amazon, and I'm like, okay, if I have to buy it through Amazon to get it, I understand that. But I messaged him, and I'm like, hey, I would much rather give you money than I would give Jeff Bezos more money so he can have another fucking mansion or whatever the hell he has. Yacht, whatever. And, get another $500,000 in fucking parking tickets. I'd rather just give you the money. So he was incredibly gracious enough to respond to my request and hook a girl up with these. So let's go ahead.
Maybe it was you and other people who prompted him to start doing, because it seems like he kind of took that up as common practice now. You DM him, and he got them to me in like a few days.
Yeah.
FedEx,
like this was relatively quickly. And I know that there's a couple of, like, on his Instagram, I've seen that he especially, and this is something that is so near and dear to my heart. So it just like, it makes my heart full. So when my heart does get broken by comics, this is what brings me back, is that you can tell he's a supporter of the local comic book stores, and especially maybe ones that are like local to him or that he knows the owner. And from what I understand, the first 2 issues were Kickstartered, and I can't recall about the second 2, but it looks like they're put out. I don't know if anyone can see this, but they're put out by Chocolate City Comics. So you can actually go to Chocolate City Comics online and order these along with some other merchandise. I think that there's some stickers. I don't even know if this is a part of Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, but I saw a shirt and a sticker that had Malcolm X and Martin Luther King as Charles Xavier and Magneto. And of course, like, that's the, the comparison. So that was really cool to see. So those may be like, I may get a sticker and have one of those Grace whatever, wherever you put stickers and things. I don't know. Yeah. So to get into the series, because like I said, it's 4 issues. The first issue doesn't even start with Harriet Tubman. It actually starts with Venus and Caesar, father and daughter, and his wife, Catherine, who they are in the midst of escaping slave owners. For obvious reasons, like slave owners were pricks. I don't know about you. This is something that I'm passionate about, like using my words to have meaning. But whenever someone says that, like, oh, they're just a product of their times, I'm like, no, they were behind the times. Like, whenever people are like, oh, Harriet Tubman was before her time, I'm like, everyone else was behind. Like, I want to give her credit for being ahead of the game, but everyone else was behind.
Yeah, that whole product of their time. I mean, that's an apologist, right? That's apologism 101.
Exactly.
Right there.
So, spoiler alert on this book. This book does not give racist any credit. This book does, it doesn't do that. They're a product of their time, and it literally shows slave owners as and racist in general, just as the racist demon assholes that they are, right? Were there any like standout moments for you, especially in issue 1, in any issue, but like, was there any standout moment for you?
Well, just in general, like having just hipped a couple people to Bitterroot, like
Yeah.
the approach is similar but much different. Like Harriet Tubman slays these demons, and it's a different time period, so thematically it's not totally the same. But it was just an interesting comparison. And so what struck me most was the like ferocity, I guess, that Harriet Tubman had in her demon slaying, which I was all for, because if I can see a racist slave owner get chopped up by a katana sword, I'm like, that's tight. Like, that's my kind of shit.
That's my brand all day, every day. And you're right. I feel like this story, in my brain, I can see it getting compared to Bitterroot, because like Bitterroot is an excellent title. And I think that we're really seeing a renaissance of creator-owned titles that aren't that they're not cookie cutter, or they're not, it is through this this gaze or this perspective of what traumatic racism, or what the traumas of racism are, right? Where in Bitterroot, you're not necessarily that I want to compare the two, just because creators of color or characters of color, but they do talk about like these deeply social and historic issues. But you're right, in Bitterroot, it's almost like, let's try to cure these racists.
Yeah. And they have, I mean, there's the one character who contrasts that by he's the one who's more firm with them, but he's kind of like he's kind of the black sheep of the family in that respect, whereas the rest of them take a more compassionate role. And it is like a different time, so I guess that's worth noting that, the cultural differences for the families would be different, and Harriet Tubman's approach would be different in that respect, in these kind of fantastical universes.
For sure.
I do like the comparison of like slave owners to demons. And I like you said, how it does them no service.
Yeah, so, it doesn't make any excuses for them or any. It's just like, you're a racist, okay, you're gonna get killed. No questions asked.
Some standout moments too, I guess, for me was like there's a lot of humor in it. There's a good deal of little jokes, and I just thought that was a good. I don't know. They landed well for me. It didn't seem forced or anything, and like Caesar's uncertainty about horses and not, like that kind of stuff. I kind of dug that it was like an unexpected. There was some unexpected humor, and I just liked the place it put me in when I was reading it. And the opening pacing is really great.
Yeah, and to me, like that, the pacing is part of like what makes a good story a good story. Like, you don't want to build up to what's going on. Just start the story when it starts. And this is exactly what it does. And you're right, because the moment that I think that you're referencing about the horses is that he doesn't want to ride a horse or something like that, and his daughter's like keeping him in check, like, what are you talking about, or something. It's something like that.
Yeah, and that's pretty quick, and that's pretty soon in the story.
And I think that's a good way of just like establishing the family dynamics here, right?
Yeah, and that's what I liked. It was a nice way of establishing those, and like I said, it just landed well. I think humor sometimes in comics too can land weird if it's not plotted well.
Yep, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was talking to my local comic shop owner, and she mentioned we were having a conversation. I forget how it came up, but basically translating comics and what that looks like. And it's like, how do you translate humor in a comic book to another language when there's so many subtle things about language where that can happen? And I think about this book too, and I think about where my headspace is at when I'm reading it. Like, is it a horror movie? Or sorry, is it a like horror book? Is it just fun action adventure? And it's so much of all of it, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Just wanted to check and see. So one of the things and that got me, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to issue 2 here, which I think out of all of the covers, this one by far is my favorite cover.
Yeah.
Of all of them.
That cover's nice.
Mm-hmm. It's really dynamic, and yeah, I really enjoy it. I think that one thing too, when I think about being compared to books like Bitterroot, like to me, I'm reading this and I'm like, why is this not published by Image? Like, why the hell did Image not pick up this book? Like, I don't know if it's necessarily that the creators didn't submit it, or if it got denied, but I could so easily see this being as a #1 Image title, the same way that, once again, Bitterroot won an Eisner Award this past year.
Yeah.
And I'm making my prediction now about Philadelphia. Like, Philadelphia is, to me, it's going to be 2021 Eisner Award winning. And if you have read Philadelphia, if you haven't, go and read it. If you have and you want to join us, we'll actually be talking about Philadelphia on Comic Chop News, Longbox Paradox. We're doing our graphic novel book club this Sunday, and the author, Rodney Barnes, is actually going to be joining us for an hour. So we're really excited about that.
Nice.
I'm trying to promise that I'm going to be on my best behavior for that. I don't know if I can deliver, so I apologize.
Well, I mean, how bad is your worst behavior, though? Is it bad?
Can I plead the fifth on that one?
Yeah, that's a great answer.
I'm not incriminating.
That's more telling.
And I think that, maybe Jennifer sober and Jennifer not sober, like, they're not the same person. So I'm just going to go ahead, and that's going to be the only thing that that's all I got to say about that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So one other thing that I wanted to mention before is that, so when I talked to David Crownson about what was the inspiration for this series, like, what was going on when you created it, and he replied back with he wanted to scare racist white people, and specifically said, I saw neo-Nazi and Klan guys feeling super comfortable. That had to change. And I don't know if that did it for me, because that's something that I think we've definitely seen. I don't necessarily know if any like neo-Nazis are going to be reading this at all. Do they know how to read? Probably not. Thank you, Fresh Biscuits. Hell yeah. So seriously, this book has so much. It has that, like, I don't know. I just enjoy it so much.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know he said that, but
Yeah.
I could gather that from the the book. And it's great because it gives it in that kind of high octane. It's kind of like a high octane action, like you said. It has those elements of horror, and it has this kind of well-paced action to it with some humor in it, and it's like a great. It's a very cinematic comic too.
Yeah. To me, like, that's almost always the filter that I use whenever I read something like this is, could I see this translated to, say, Netflix, or could I see it on the big screen? And immediately I could. I feel like a couple years ago, there was this big trend of like, what am I thinking? Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, and who was the other one? And so I think when I initially saw this, I'm like, okay, this is going to be that. This is not that. It's so much better.
Yeah.
It's so much better. Like, what was it? Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I'm not necessarily knocking those titles like whatsoever, but this is not that. To me, it's so much more.
I actually haven't checked those out, so I can't knock them. But
I watched Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and it wasn't bad, but is it going to be listed as one of my favorite movies? No. So anyways, it is what it is. You tried Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and you Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer, Vampire Hunter. You know, you rode this wave of like anachronistic stuff, and you peaked in popularity, but I feel like it I don't know. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. So for anyone who's just joining us, because I see like a couple upticks in the chat, so thank you for being here. We're talking about Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, which is a really awesome book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. In issue 2, spoiler alert, we find out that Harriet Tubman... Do I want to give this spoiler away? I don't know.
In issue 2?
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have to give away the whole detail about that particular thing. She's got like more stakes in the game, right?
Okay, that's a good way to put it. Like now, all of a sudden, there's like an additional, I don't know. You're right. Like total extra stake in the game, and that's another part where it adds the humor to it, right? Because it's so unexpected, and I feel bad. I'm sure people are like, I haven't read it, but like, just tell me what it is.
That's so how I do. That's how.
Yeah. So you know what? Let me go ahead and do this. Chat, if you want to know what this spoiler is, then go ahead and like type something in the chat if you want to know what the spoiler is, and we'll go ahead and release it. Otherwise, maybe just I'm here to give the people what they want.
You're not drinking. You're not drinking today.
I am, because this channel is apparently sponsored by Basic Girl Drinks.
What is that? What are they? What?
So it's basically like I find that they're better than like White Claw, but they're like a fruity seltzer drink, and they only have 1 gram of sugar. I'm not conceited. I'm actually diabetic, so I'm trying to be okay. So this isn't me just being like, I need to watch my girlish figure. But it's a Truly, and it's got 5% alcohol, so I actually need to drink like 3 of these to get.
I'm the lightest of lightweights. Like I drink maybe once or twice a year. So I can have 1 beer, and like halfway through, I'm like, whoa, I need to chill.
So what you're saying, see here, what I'm hearing is that you're a cheap date.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. I will sit on one like whiskey Coke, and I'll just sit on it for like an hour and a half, and I'll just like.
Sorry guys, my cat wants to be here to talk about Harriet Tubman. I got to move some stuff out of the way for him. So for anyone who doesn't know, this is Luna, and he loves comics too. He's deaf, so he can't hear me.
He's so cute.
He's a handful, for sure. But I love him.
I have a for cats. I have a particular for cats.
Yeah, I feel like I love dogs, but when it comes to, I feel like I get along with cats better.
There you go.
Even though in my apartment building, I'm pretty sure I know like the names of 20 dogs that live here, and I know the name of like 1 person who lives here. If that tells you anything about, I don't know, my priorities.
I dislike dogs until I'm around them, and then I'm like, oh, okay, you're cute.
I feel like dogs, for me, it's almost like like kids. Like kids will follow you everywhere, to the bathroom, and what are you doing? They got to have some of your food and all of that. And my cats aren't necessarily like that. So
They're not sycophantic, no.
No, not at all. So chat didn't really. Okay, so hello. I want to go ahead and acknowledge the chat. I think that I can actually put the comments up here. So I want to go ahead and yay, that one popped up. I've never done that before, so I just want to go ahead and say hello to Josh. Fresh biscuits, hell yeah. I think that was whenever we were talking about David Crownson saying that the inspiration for this series was that he wanted to make racist afraid again. I absolutely love that. So I want to go ahead and say hello to Robert. Alrighty. So, fresh biscuits. You are here for the spoiler that I'm talking about. It's not like a big spoiler. Like I don't feel like it's not gonna ruin the book, but I want you to go and buy it, and I don't want me revealing what happens to be like, oh, I already know what happens. I don't want to buy it. Because please, for the love of whatever, buy this book. It's so much fun. But anyways, in the spoiler in issue number 2, at the end of issue number 2, is that Harriet Tubman has a son. And, you know, we were talking about the humor about this book and how it's funny and it's fun. Spoiler alert. Her son's a white dude who is like totally precious. And even in issue 3, there's a cute little like, oh look, we are related. The like palms of our hands are both white. And so like, even though when I even saying that right now, I'm like, that's hella offensive. Like, you don't say that type of stuff. It's actually really funny and it's really cute and it makes fun of itself.
Yeah, they do. They
in the
use
book
that to make fun of itself. Yeah, I do. I like that bit, and the characters, you know, here.
Yeah, and when he comes along, because basically what they're doing is they're escaping slavery. Duh, that's what Harriet Tubman did. But it paints them as these slave owners and these slave patrollers, as they're obviously evil, wicked people, and just does not give them any type of, I don't know, apology, anything like that. So do you have any other like thoughts or any other moments in, because like I said earlier, if you're just joining us, Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer has 4 issues out right now. It looks like we're going to get a 5th issue in October, maybe, and a 6th issue in December, maybe. So like, what were some standout moments for you?
Well, one interesting thing I wanted to bring up was the varying artists.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
You know, I thought it was interesting because in, let me go ahead and pull this up. In issue number 1, it's just David Crownson. Mm-hmm. And sorry, my cat wants to eat it. And it's like, you don't eat it.
No.
It's David Crownson and Cortland Ellis, right? Like they're the 2 creators. And then in issue number 2, it does show that David Crownson is the writer, but then Cortland Ellis is the letterer. So I don't know, exists in art by Joey Vasquez. So I don't necessarily know what happened there, but I didn't see too much of an art style change, which I really enjoyed, because sometimes that happens. There's a huge, like there's an artist change and the style is so completely different that it ruins the story for me.
Yeah, and then Cortland Ellis is back on number 3, I guess.
Yeah, and then I think that, and I don't know if anyone has, you know, if you have seen this, please go check out Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer on Instagram. But they put up like little sneak peeks and whatever, and the cover for issue number 5 is beautiful. Like I wish I could, like, I'm sure I could if I knew how to do it, but the cover is just absolutely incredible.
Is it this one?
It is not that one. It's a different one. Like it shows someone's eye crying and it's a whole bunch of people in KKK like things. Yeah, it's really good. For anyone who follows me on Instagram, that's probably how you got here, I imagine. If you got here another way, I'd really like to know. The people in the chat, how did you get introduced to this? But that's the cover for issue 5.
One thing I guess I really liked too was I just thought that for being 4 issues, the character development was done quickly but concisely, and the character of the little girl Venus was very much established as like this heart, the heart of this narrative that everyone's going around, and it was believable, and I felt like I felt for her and her parents getting away, and I appreciated how it broke the dynamic of the male versus female with Caesar being, at one point I think he in various ways he just shows that he's a little more afraid than and less prepared to handle things with his daughter and his wife, which I thought was very cool. Just to kind of break that, I appreciate anything that kind of breaks the monotony of storytelling, and that's why I appreciate the whole racism element in this anyways, because I think comics is capable of doing so much commentary wise, and when it's used in that service, it can be both straightforward and fantastical, and I just think this does a really great job of, like you said, catching the themes, the current social themes, placing them in this kind of fantastical world. And I just love worlds like that, like how there's other monsters to expect, or the world kind of spreads out, kind of like a Hellboy style or something,
I love that comparison, man.
Well, it starts to build a mythos, which I really think is dope. And that's and it does it quick in 4 issues. You gotta applaud something that can get that much done so quickly. Even like you said, even with the change in artist in number 2, I noticed the art difference, but the art still complemented the story very well, and so it didn't bother me. Kind of in that same way as the Hellboy books do. They have people who, even though their styles are different, they all seem like that universe, like it all fits. And so I thought that didn't seem like a hiccup at all. So, and number 3 ended up being a super huge issue, which was awesome as well.
It was jam-packed. I had to squish it. I feel like I had to squish it into the bag and board that I had, because I don't know about you, but I try to conserve my bags and my boards. So I'll normally do issue 1 on one side and issue 2 on the other side, 3, 4, and put 2 in each bag. So putting issue 3 in with 4, it's jam packed, but I didn't feel like it was too much. Hey, Tacoma, how's it going? I want to go ahead and shout out Tacoma. Another really cool. Oh, sorry. I don't think. There we go. I'm still getting used to StreamYard, so I apologize because I can see that comment, but I don't know who else can. Okay. So I'm not alone. We DB it.
I think that's
double
very
bag.
Conservationist of you, and that's applaudable.
Yeah.
I actually know.
Thank you.
I've never even considered doing that.
I feel like when it comes to that, it's almost like when I started doing it, I'm like, is this a faux pas? Am I breaking some comic book rule that you're not? Am I a poser for doing this? But my whole brand, my whole life has just been, fuck it, just do it. And so it makes sense to me. So yeah, back to what you were actually saying. Issue 3 of this series is absolutely jam-packed. And there's a lot of information, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. Sometimes when an issue has that much content, you're like, wait, what did I just read? Did I miss something? So yeah. Another good point that Tacoma brought up, when you've got 4,000 comics, you save 2,000 bags and boards. 100% agree.
And yeah, I started just doing the math in my head when you said that, and I was like, I think I have about 10,000, and I was like, shit, that was probably a lot of waste. Just plastic.
Yeah.
Lots of plastic.
AA Comics. You double bag your comics. I knew it. Yes. I'm referring to it as DB.
Doing the
I
old
DB my
DB.
comics. Yeah. um. So, so anyways, issue 3 is just jam packed, and
Yes.
then obviously it goes into issue 4. There's like another character that ends up getting introduced in uh issue 4, and I'm not necessarily going to give away this spoiler, but it's kind of an interesting character. It's written so well, and I love it whenever characters like this, we are given like a pinch of information, but it leaves us wanting more. And I felt that way at the end of issue 4, is that like I'm given a little bit of information about this character, and I really feel like this is building up the mythos of what's going on. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
the world building started early on, but at the end of issue 4, when he like walks into the church and introduces himself, and we know there's like vampires and demons in this world, but I'm like, wait, what is he? Is he a vampire? Is he a demon? Like, who is he? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? So, um, I seriously, I can't wait for issue 5 and issue 6.
Yeah, I think he said something about Halloween for issue 5, like around Halloween time, which would be
Yeah,
great. That'd be a great time to
it was
get it.
it was basically like an Instagram page with like, I think that was Tina Belcher on this one, but there was like some Halloween like moving little animation gifs, and I'm like, and he posted a little hint as to when the next issue will come out. So this will be a really nice. This is making my 2020 better.
Yeah, it's been a gem actually, and it's been cool because I've seen other crowdfunded stuff and I've bought other crowdfunded stuff that I've got from like creators at cons and shit. I'm kind of uh, I kind of like to
You're
do
breaking
that.
out a little bit. Would you mind?
I kind of like to
Sorry,
gamble on
it
stuff.
cut out for me.
So like when I'm at
Yeah.
cons, I'll grab people's Kickstarter books in the last few years or their indie stuff. I like to check out that stuff. And so I've seen a lot of stuff ranging from, super, down here production value, higher production value. And I've seen how the story can really stand out even without a high production value. But
Yeah.
I thought that this book had a pretty solid production value. Like the coloring was well done. The lettering, I mean, besides some like typos, and that shit happens in every comic ever.
Yeah.
So,
I
like,
want to go ahead and say hi, Mariano from Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires,
I
nice.
agree. Like you're right.
Argentina.
Yeah. And you're right. Whenever you do go ahead and buy an indie comic book, because this is like more indie than indie, right? I think for me, Image is like that standard of like production, and
Mm-hmm.
where I typically go for like independent comics, but they typically are going to have a more mainstream appeal, right? Like there's going to
Yeah.
be an editor, and there's going to be, they may even choose who like some other creators that you get to work with at some capacity, depending on the publisher. Um, but with this one, for the price that I paid, I feel like totally worth it, even though like shipping kind of got up there at some points, but I
Yeah.
was like, whatever.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think is really important, that when we buy indie comic books, and I think right now, for me personally, I'm trying to like reach out scope of what I read, who I read, and even though I consider myself a social justice warrior, and like diversity in comic books, diversity and inclusivity is like my brand of like comic books that I want to read, but I was still finding that I'm reading comic books that maybe had like a person of color as a main character, but am I really supporting creators? I think that that's where my bookshelf was severely lacking, and I think that that is an issue that needs to be resolved in mainstream books. But right now, the only way that I can get over that, and the only way that I can cure that, is to reach out to those independent creators and put my money where my mouth is, right?
Yeah.
So I found that um, I've tried to spend more and more of my money, because every dollar that you spend is a vote for the type of like industry that you want. And I think that even though like big name publishers do have a standard of quality that we get to meet that we don't always see in indie comic books, I think that what that can end up doing is that there's stories that we miss out on because they don't have mainstream appeal, and we need to celebrate those stories even if they don't tell the same story that we're used to. That's just been my like thought and perspective.
Absolutely. And I think, well, I've dealt for years with the fucking, no way to parse words, the dudes at the comic shops, like, who are just so they just want to push back against anything, and so I've always been, acutely aware, try to be acutely aware of like the stuff that is going against the traditional comics stuff, and I've always been willing to, if I see somebody at a con who has like 3 issues of their book out, I'm like, that's enough. Like, I'll get all 3, and like, the only downside is sometimes I get really invested, and then I'll like email them, and they'll be like, "Oh, like me and the artist, we're not making the book anymore," and I'm like, "Dang!" But still, like, it was while it lasted, and so I think the inclusivity, like you were saying, is starting to be a big trend that, of course, there's people pushing back against because they wish everything was homogenous forever. But like, if they want that shit, they have 100 years of the shit to go look at. Like, if they want white dudes all the time, buff white dudes all the time, there's all kinds of that shit. You can go just go read any of it. There's like, even I have some of the shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll lend them some of my buff white. I
feel like you and I have kind of had this discussion about almost falling out of love with certain characters that we used to love, like Batman, and how like Batman is one of the things that kind of brought me into comic books. Like, not necessarily that he's like a superhero. Like, you can debate, like, is Batman actually a superhero? Like, okay, superpowers, money, I get it, whatever. But I feel like reading stories like Long Halloween, like, those were the things that got me into comics. And now I find myself, I mean, I'm not necessarily going to talk about the down that DC has been having over these last couple hours, like, but I find it really hard to read a Batman book and enjoy it.
I actually
like a new one.
No joke, I got rid of all my Batman trades. Like, I
saw that, and I know that.
I was like, what am I going to do? I reread a couple just to see. Like, and there's some that I do like. Long Halloween, any of the Jeff Loeb shit and Tim Sale shit, that's the stuff that actually stands out the most to me if I go back and look at it. Maybe Broken City, like Azzarello, even though I'm like kind of hit or miss with Azzarello, like Broken City was good.
Yeah.
But I reread a bunch of the shit, and it just fell so flat to me, and I was just like, I couldn't. Not that I need to sympathize with a character in a book or anything, but just the universe is just so bland, and his the character gallery is just kind of bland, and I just. So over the years, my Marvel and DC titles have gone down. Though I still read Vertigo, and like, I read quite a bit of Vertigo because of the Sandman.
Rest in peace, Vertigo.
I still call it all Vertigo. Like, I'm still referring to all the old Vertigo titles, like the Sandman especially.
Mariano here, I think I'm pointing at it correctly, mentions the question. And the new question is actually written by Jeff Lemire and drawn by Dennis Cowan, who Dennis Cowan had a big hand in Milestone. Was it Milestone Comics or Milestone Media? I forget what it was called, but it was basically like all creators of color back in the 90s doing like an imprint for DC. And of course it dissolved, and that's unfortunate. But Dennis Cowan is still here doing amazing work. Yeah, surprise.
And the question actually, like, I flipped through it a little bit the other day, and it looks actually pretty enjoyable. And I'm more likely to check out the kind of offbeat shit from DC and Marvel. Like, I consider the question kind of offbeat. Like, I read a Doctor Fate run not too long ago because Sunny Liu was illustrating it, and Sunny Liu is fucking great. He's a Chinese American artist, so I like to pick up those offbeats. So I might check out the question here and there, but I may get hate for it. But I don't give them my money anymore. I should. I strictly put my money to independent comics, and I read everything else online for free, without any guilt in my heart, like none.
Yeah. I definitely I understand
they're conglomerates. That. They're literally conglomerates with billions of dollars in multimedia franchises. They don't give a fuck about the reader, or else they wouldn't have stupid big events all the time, like 100 times a year, and tie-ins. They wouldn't have that shit, like, if they cared about the readers.
Yep.
That's just my take. That's a hot take.
I feel like, oh yeah. Thank you. I 100%. I'm there with you on that.
I'll take on the big two.
So, yeah, $1 to an indie artist or indie creator at a time.
Yeah, and I mean, but the thing is, it makes me more likely to give more money to indie creators, and that's what makes me have no guilt about it. Is I support as many independent creators as I can. That's the trade-off. That's my conscience trade-off.
So I know we talked a little bit about some similarities, like, some other series similarities. But when you think about, like, who would you recommend Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer to? Because I was trying to think, like, my first reaction is, like, I just want to recommend it to everyone because it's great. But I feel like the tone would get lost on some people, or the fact that you can't, buy it at Barnes & Noble or whatever. So, like, who's the person that you would recommend this to?
Actually, like, I posted it on my Instagram, just on, like, just everybody should read this, gave a quick little kind of what it was about, that it approached the socio issue from this kind of mystical perspective and stuff. Artistic stuff, yes. And then, and three people messaged me that they had DM'd the creator and bought copies, and they were such disparate people that I was very surprised. Like, one of them was a science teacher from New York that I know through playing cards, like, and then one is a friend from Sacramento who just had mutual friends for a long time, and we just kind of probably share an interest in radical ideas, and so they picked it up, and then another one of my friends picked it up. So I actually think it has a pretty wide appeal for what it is, though I think fans of stuff like, I mean, maybe I lean to this because I'm such a fan of Hellboy, but, like, I think fans of Hellboy could dig on it because it has a levity, like, that mixes with the dark elements really well, and I think that's what I've always appreciated about Hellboy, was that it mixes that levity with the seriousness and that dark, the dark themes. So I think that could go.
And Hellboy has that good blend, like, serious and comedic, which this has, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and cinematic as well. Like, when I think cinematic, I think of it when I'm reading a comic that I feel is cinematic. It almost makes my eyes move in a way that feels like a movie reel. Like, I'm almost like envisioning it as like a movie reel moving past, the front of my face when it's really good and well paced, and that's what I liked about this one. And I think fans of Bitterroot,
like, you don't have to think about it.
No, it flows, and it makes your eyes follow the movement, and even when it's unconventional panel work, I think that's like what is really a good sign of a well composed comic, is when the unconventional panel work doesn't seem unconventional to you, and it just moves your eye along with it.
Like, it's really dynamic.
Yeah.
Like, and you can tell that the relationship between the writer and the artist, because that's so much of what comic books is it's like it's a team up, right? So you've got your artist who's like, I have this vision in my head, there's a story, but I also maybe need to tell you what it looks like, and you're the artist and you have to draw it based on this, but you need to do it in your style, and I need to not tell you. So like you can tell that there's a really good relationship between the team, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I want to go ahead and I want to wrap it up. But before I do, like, seriously, everybody, Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. What I did is I found David Crownson on Instagram, sent him a message. He was so seriously like gracious and like got these to me so timely. So I highly recommend you do that. And so Melchior, thank you so much for coming on. For everyone who is watching, thank you for like commenting and everything. Where can the lovely people of the internet find you, lovely person on the internet?
Find me? Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at SmokerBuddy. You can find me on Facebook at my full name, which is hard to spell and pronounce. But it's on my Instagram. You can figure it's Melchior Sigmund. It's very Spanish. You can find me on YouTube, Modern Lit. And yeah, I think one big thing too, I think, to recommend this to people is anybody who has an interest in just kind of radicalizing what they're reading. Like,
I love that. Radicalizing what you're reading.
And in a transitional way too. Like, it's not gonna be, nonfiction straightforward. It's kind of easing it in, and I think it's a fucking gem for that. So I think a lot of people could benefit from it. So.
For sure. And, you made a good point, because I think that a lot of times I've heard people say, oh, I really liked this because it talked about serious issues, i.e. like racism or the patriarchy or whatever, but it didn't hit me in the face with it, or it didn't like bash me over the head. And like me, I'm just like, hit me over the head with this message, please. Like that I can handle it. I'm a big girl.
I think it's time for heavy-handedness. So yeah. I don't see any problem.
Correct. Seriously, thank you so much for coming on. I really hope all of you enjoyed this. I hope that you go out and you find Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. I hope all of you go out and find my friend Melchior. Like, seriously, like, your poetry gives me life. Like, I love the poetry readings. I love the like video that you made. So like, please, friends, go ahead and find Melchior out there on them internets. And I assume most of you know where to find me, because you maybe found this. But comics will break your heart on YouTube. Comic books will break your heart on Instagram. Twitter, I'm barely on there, but you can find me at Gin and Comic Show, because that was like my old thing that I was doing. I also, if you like, I'm going to shameless self-plug here. If you enjoy this content, I have a Patreon for as little as $2 a month. I still haven't done the math on what that breaks down to each day, but literally $2 a month, and you can get reviews and stuff. So anyways, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Thank you for everyone viewing. And thank you to the creators of Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. Yeah. Like, you literally gave me life during quarantine. So thank you so much.
Later.
Bye.